Nerdiest Prime.
Welcome to the episode that's about Riker getting an inflatable sex toy. And it reuses so much footage and plot points, it's practically a clip show of Star Trek III and Where No One Has Gone Before. Right out of the gate, we're treated to footage of Star Trek III, where the Enterprises have been swapped, and the Enterprise D is getting a tune-up, even though it's only been in space for, 14 episodes. They are greeted by Commander Quintaros, who was the original designer of the Enterprise, and looks suspiciously like a cross between evil Mirror Universe Picard and a low-budget Sean Connery. With him, he brings the Bynars, a race of non-binary, binary beings that have become way too addicted to their smartphones and now are completely codependent on their master computer. They've come on board to upgrade the main computer, and Riker, with nothing much to do, leaves Wesley in charge of the bridge to go wander the ship and make friends, even though he's immediately suspicious of the Bynars. After trying to hang out with Data, Geordi, Tasha, and Beverly, he finally settles on creating a fantasy girl on the holodeck a la Weird Science. That's the creepiest thing since Riker's leering in the episode Justice. Her name is Minuet, and immediately he plays trombone in her face and tries to figure out how far the relationship can go. God knows what debauchery would have ensued had Picard not just walked in without knocking.
Enchanté, comme c'est merveilleux de vous voir ici.
We hear some awkward fake French, and Picard and Riker then spend 15 minutes talking about Minuet as if she isn't sitting right there in front of them. It's okay, she's just a woman. I mean, a hologram. And not just any hologram. She was actually made by the Bynars to trap Riker in the holodeck while they faked an imminent warp core breach. And we witness the slowest evacuation ever that somehow gets 1,041 people off the ship in less than 4 minutes. The Enterprise flies away while everyone just watches out the window. Minuet gets all clingy, and Picard and Riker figure something's up. When they find out that the ship has been stolen, they get ray guns and dramatically activate the self-destruct sequence. But when they arrive on the bridge, they find the Bynars have all passed out, like they drank too much Trania. It turns out they stole the Enterprise to back up their master computer's hard drive after it was wiped clean by the electromagnetic pulse from a supernova. It's confusing how a supernova in their star system wouldn't obliterate their planet, along with its master computer. But anyway, it's the first season. Riker and Picard have to figure out the magic code to upload the backup to the master computer, and they figure out it's the name of the episode. All's well that ends well with the Bynars returning control of the Enterprise, but Riker losing his fantasy girl in the process. It's just a woman in a weird wig. Maybe she was uploaded back to the planet and is now hanging out in a Bynar jazz bar? Riker asks the Bynars why they didn't just ask for help instead of stealing the ship. Good question. The episode ends with Picard driving the Enterprise back to starbase like a grandpa who hasn't driven in 20 years, and we get another reenactment of Star Trek III. The end.
Hi, and welcome to our review of Star Trek The Next Generation. Today we're doing 11001001, and that is the classic episode from the middle of the first season. I'm joined once again by the Nerdiest Prime crew. So what did we think about this episode? Let's start with Alan.
So I really like this one. I feel like it's one of the ones where I feel like they really come up with a great science fiction premise. The Bynars were a great science fiction creation. I feel like they're one of the first true interesting alien species we've seen on Next Generation. I think we're 15 episodes in, and this is finally the one where we get a great new alien species. And yeah, I enjoyed the story for this one. The acting was pretty good. The effects were great. So, yeah, this is one I do like. Yeah, I really like this one. I remember this being one of my favorite episodes from first season, just because it kind of, it ticks all the boxes for me, like a slow unraveling mystery, weird AI, and Riker pretending he knows how to play jazz music. So that's everything. That's all I need for an episode.
I've realized that, and not just with this episode, but with the season so far, that I've been feeling kind of bored at the end of each episode. And I've realized that it's because I'm not really invested in a lot of the characters yet. Um, and so in this episode, Riker kind of being a creep doesn't really help things. Like the episode failed to make me care about the fate of the characters. And Riker being a creep does not help things. So the focus on Riker in this episode specifically kind of just made me want to call it a day. A part of me kind of wished that like the two people left behind were Geordi and Data, just because I actually like them. So, but besides the characters, I actually did really like the plot. I thought having these aliens that are interconnected with their computer really cool, and the fact that they take over the Enterprise to save their species is really cool. Also, the fact that there are only two people left on board to help them and also help the ship is a fun addition to everything. So the premise is really good. Having this extra intelligent holodeck character act as a sort of liaison between the Bynars and the Enterprise is really cool. So there's a lot of parts of the episode that I think is really cool that I really liked, but I just don't like Riker. So I did not feel an urge to see him succeed. And so I felt like there was a bit of lost potential there. I felt like if it was literally anyone else left behind, I would have been, like right there.
Well, there's a lot that I like about this episode and a lot that I don't like. It's a really good episode, and there's like pieces that are missing. I love the Bynars. I like the fact that we get to see the Enterprise sort of like between episodes, between adventures, getting an overhaul or an upgrade. It's the first time we see that, or seeing some of the people some of the crew having their time off. And I think that this episode kind of is the beginning of a batch of episodes in the middle of the first season where I really felt that the show started hitting its stride. There's this one, there's When the Bow Breaks, Coming of Age, and Heart of Glory. So let's talk about the premise, how we feel about the premise. Let's go and let's start with Namir.
How did I feel about the premise? I liked it. I thought it was pretty unique. I liked that you didn't really know what the premise was until a little bit later into the episode. Like some of the episodes, you're like, okay, I know what's going on right away. With this one, you knew something was up with the Bynars.
What spilled the beans for you? Was it the highly dramatic music every time we saw the Bynars?
No, was it the conspicuous
the Bynars?
No, it was when Wesley was like, "There's something going on here," and one of the Bynars is like,
"Yeah, exactly."
That's when I was like, that something's not kosher here with these binary aliens. But I like that because I like the mystery, because it's not really, it's not really clear what exactly is going on and how the puzzle pieces kind of fit until much later, right? Because for a while you're just like, why is this Minuet character important? Like this just seems like a weird kind of throwaway. Something's going on there, but you don't know what it is. So I like those episodes that have that sort of mysterious sort of element. There's definitely something happening, but you don't know what it is until later on. So it's like unraveling, and they're solving things, and problems happen one after the other. So in terms of the premise of the episode, I thought it was great. Like, to me, this is like the type of Star Trek that I want to watch.
I really liked the premise. I really like the idea of the whole ship being empty except for two people, in this case being Picard and Riker. And also, the Enterprise being stolen by this species that we don't know a lot about. So, yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a good idea. And the premise was also pretty simple. Like, there wasn't a sort of B plots to muddle things, or like there was no irrelevant. Sorry, hold on. There was no irrelevant story. Everything was related to the main premise, which I liked.
Yeah, I really like the premise of this one too. Like Namir said, the mystery. Like if I hadn't already seen this probably several dozen times and I was watching it for the first time, I would imagine that yeah, as I watched this, if you were a first time viewer, really have no idea what's going on until the pieces all fall into place towards the end. The only thing now, I'll say in retrospect, looking at it, is like I feel like it's a little slow paced. Where I feel like there should be more urgency in recovering the Enterprise. Like it seemed like a lot of our characters were stuck doing nothing for a lot of the episode. And that felt kind of like going back to them felt pointless because they were really accomplishing nothing at the starbase. Just all a bunch of worrywarts standing around. Like, why are we doing something? And but yeah, as for like a hijacking and having aliens with seemingly possibly nefarious intentions and ending up being somebody we can sympathize with, was a very nice Star Trek plot. And say after several duds, it's nice to see this one because this one I always have a soft spot for the Bynars and their plight.
So I really like the premise of this episode. I feel like there's basically two episodes here. There's like a holodeck premise episode, and there's like a ship takeover premise of an episode. And I like those two things. I think they're kind of like my favorite things put together.
And there's a third boring plot line of them all standing around Starbase waiting worried.
Oh, yes. But really the ship takeover premise of the episode is an excuse to have a holodeck premise episode. And I wish it was just a holodeck episode. That's not my favorite part. The idea of a holodeck character sort of coming to life, or a character from the show, from the crew, falling in love with the holodeck character is a great idea, and I love that part of the episode. The sort of cringy elements aside from that, but the sort of the falling in love with a fantasy, I like that, and they do it much better with Geordi LaForge and season 3 with Booby Trap. But I like a lot of what they do, and really the fault isn't in the premise, but really in the plot and how all these pieces come together. So let's talk about the plot. Because there's a lot that, to me, that don't make sense in this episode. So, Alan, what do you think about the plot?
Well, that again, it's a lot of the problems that we do see with the first season, where the crew are either really gullible or just bad at their jobs for like determining what's going on around them, because again, the Bynars acting suspicious, and Wesley is expressing this to Riker, and Riker pretty much just shrugs it off, and where it's like we've obviously
he doesn't shrug it off, and that's the worst part.
Oh well, yeah, I guess he just keep an eye on them or whatever, but I mean, they're looking very suspicious at him. I don't know why
and every person on the ship, Picard, Riker, Geordi, they all just kind of do the same thing. They kind of go like, Wesley, keep an eye on them. They seem suspicious. Get a security detail. Why are you telling the teenager?
I know. Okay, exactly. Why they got the civilian teenager again keeping watch? I don't think anybody was suspicious. I think what they were saying is that there's something that they don't understand, right? Because they have this conversation about, maybe it's just the way that they are, it's a new species. We don't understand, the way they operate. We don't really know anything about what they're doing. But if I was them, I would totally trust them because they're Starfleet, right? They were brought on by the guy that built the ship. So I think it's just like,
that Quintero's guy.
Keep an eye on them. And if it looks like, if they pull out like a hammer and start, whacking the computer, then give us a call, right? But all they were doing was like looking around and talking in that really, fast binary sort of voice. So I don't think there was enough there for them to suddenly call a security detail and round him up and throw him in a gulag. Like I felt like those reactions were natural. And then Riker just kind of got lost in the holodeck, which was sort of the whole point.
I feel like you're so lenient on the show.
Yeah. That seemed like a really natural reaction to me, right? They're all just like, Wesley's like, I don't know, I got some questions, and everyone's like, okay, well, if something happens, call me, right? Which is totally fair.
That's what happens. So Wesley does say he has questions, and the questions are legitimate, but Riker is kind of scowling at the Bynars, and Wesley's like, what's up? Like, what do you think? He's like, no, I got a weird feeling. And then he whispers into Wesley's ears, like, hey, just keep an eye on them. Just keep an eye on them.
Yeah, but it's just, he's just got a weird feeling. And Wesley has no specific things. Wesley's not like, oh my God, they're hacking the computer. He's also like, something's not right here, right? So it's all like low grade suspicion.
No, I just don't understand. I mean, we just watched another, we watched Where No One Has Gone Before, where a guy, an alien with a Starfleet guy comes aboard, and they basically say, you're not going to do nothing to our engines without, us checking your specs and all this stuff, and supervising the refit. And it seems like there's nobody from engineering operations supervising this computer upgrade at all. And I'm like, why wouldn't there be? Like, I mean, they can do their thing, and the person there might not be able to interact with them because of the way they operate, but they can at least supervise what's happening. And there's just like no supervision at all. Like, I would want to know that if they're going to upgrade my ship, that everything's, okay, yeah, you guys did a great job. I just double checked everything, and there's none of that. And Quintero just kind of disappears. He comes on board with them, and he's there, and then he's not. He's over in the star base, and I'm like, oh, why is he over there now? I thought he was kind of like their Starfleet supervisor, and he's just gone. It's just Wesley.
Oh, for that part, I wrote, like Riker is distrustful of the Bynars, citing like their kind of odd behavior. But like you would think that considering he's the commander of an intergalactic starship, or not intergalactic, interplanetary starship, that it'd be more open to different types of behaviors from different species. And so to me, this was just another reason why he's consistently unprofessional on the job, whether it's sleeping with the leaders of alien planets or just like being rude to a new species. So I was just like, this is just him not being good at his job. But also with the whole suspicious thing, to me that was just, the writers are setting something up here. I'm just gonna wait to see what it is. I didn't think too much about the fact that they put Wesley on it. Wesley just kind of does his thing. He's gonna tell me like why there's a problem. He's gonna, what's the word, exposition. He's gonna provide the exposition for me. That's all.
Yeah. And plus, he's an ensign now. Like, he has the same rank as Harry Kim, so he deserves to be on the bridge.
Acting it.
They should just give him like bridge duty. He just like the night shift.
Yeah. Why don't they just give him command?
Listen, he's not quite there yet.
But they're totally leaving him in charge. And the thing is that to me it's a tone issue, because leaving the kid in charge is totally like a kid show conceit. It's like you do that in kid shows or in kid movies. You put kids in adult situations because you want the kids to be the main character. And so that's what they do here. But then there's a bunch of other stuff in the episode, like, and we haven't gone to the super, what's the word? Like, the kind of steamy scenes between Riker and Minuet.
Steam. There would not much chemistry there at all. Yeah.
Well, maybe we watched a different episode, but I thought that was not kid material. So you have like a kid tone episode where the kid's in charge, and then you have this kind of like, sort of sexual innuendo situation down on the holodeck. It's kind of like all foreplay, basically. So, anyways, I think that just in terms of the plot, the whole conceit of the episode, which is that the Bynars steal the Enterprise because there's a supernova or something that's near the planet that might wipe out the computer. So they need a big backup. They need a backup drive. It's like, instead of going to the Apple store and getting an external hard drive, they just stole the Enterprise.
Yeah, I'm confused about that too. I'm like, when they said a supernova threatened their computer, I was like, what? How does that happen? Because wouldn't a supernova just destroy their star system?
Lola, you want to take this one? I think Lola wants to take this one.
Maybe my science is off.
No, it's like have you ever heard of like a Carrington event? So it's like when there's a solar storm, or there was a solar storm in like the 1800s that actually like burnt out like some sort of wider.
Well, I mean, I get that there's like there's spatial phenomena like quasars and pulsars and electromagnetic energies and stuff. But a supernova means a star exploded, right?
I know. A solar storm can cause technological...
Okay, Namir is going to wow us with some science. Okay, come on.
Okay, so basically what they're saying is that there's an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse, right? So,
but they didn't say that.
Yes, they did. So
they said supernova.
No, they said it's a supernova causing an electromagnetic pulse. So basically...
I must have missed out, I guess.
Tell me what this is all about.
A star in the Bynar system went supernova, and they miscalculated. The electrical magnetic pulse from the explosion was going to knock out their main computer.
Magnetic pulse?
One burst in outer space over the UK, and everything with a microchip in it would be rendered absolutely useless.
When you have a nuclear explosion, that causes an EMP and it fries all the electronics. So basically what they were saying was this was like a sun-sized nuclear explosion, which is what a supernova is. So it blasted an EMP over their planet, which was all technology. And so it would fry everything. So they had to back up all their data.
Well, I get that part of it, but I'm just saying, how did they get there?
How many times have you watched this episode, Alan?
Well, I'm just unclear about this supernova because that would lead me to believe a star exploded.
Yeah, but it wasn't the fire of the star. It was the EMP that was caused by the supernova.
This is the smallest detail of the episode, I think, of the plot. I think with the part that doesn't make sense in the episode is that the fact that they create Minuet to distract Riker so that he'll stay on board, so they have somebody on board in case anything goes wrong with them stealing the Enterprise and they need help. And so that feels super contrived to me. I'm sure they could have come up with a better way to have all those events happen without just making up this totally made up reason. And then Picard at the end of the episode says, "Why didn't you just ask for help?" And they're like, "Well, we were afraid you'd say no." And it's like, that's like Namir, yes.
But that's the best part thing about the episode, was they had a binary choice to make.
Yeah. Okay. So this is what happened. This is my understanding of what happened. They were originally just going to steal the Enterprise, but they realized that they wouldn't get there in time, right? So when they got there, they'd be knocked out. So they needed to keep somebody on the ship, Riker, but they only just learned that. So they were kind of making things up on the fly. So that whole Minuet thing wasn't part of the original plan. They did it there. So they basically saw an opportunity. They're like, "Oh, Riker's in there. Oh, he likes women. Let's make it interesting that he'll get distracted by, to keep him in there." And then, so that's what happened. It wasn't part of the original plan. Well, what's really this is the thing I have a problem with too. Again, I think the ending is very sweet, but the fact that they did that to keep Riker on board in case they got passed out and something happened to them, but then when Riker does the file thing, Picard is the one that realizes, oh, they work in pairs, so I probably need another person at this other console. I'm like, so why was their plan just to keep one person on board when they really needed two people to be on board in case they passed it?
Yeah, I'll grant you that. That
That
was
made
dumb.
no sense.
That was dumb. That was totally stupid. I mean, yeah, they're looking for the file. They're looking for the file, and they're like, we got to find a file, and they just come up with a random. They should have just searched by, sorted by, date created by, whatever was the last one created.
They were
is the
really
one.
fortunate that Minuet was French, so she would also enthrall Picard, and he would stick behind too because he was not part of their plan.
Yeah, I get that. Like, I think that was a little bit weird, and the double password thing at the end was strange. But I'm willing to let that go because the rest of the episode was just so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about what the main course of this episode is: the holodeck scenes between Riker and Minuet, and where he's selecting a woman that's going to watch him play jazz, and he gets Minuet and basically starts to fall in love with her and all this sort of stuff. So let's start with Lola. How did you feel about the holodeck stuff?
That's a great question. So the scene where Riker is so there's the scene where Riker is like trying to pick the perfect woman to spend time with in this New Orleans bar, and I don't know, when it comes to like whether we're talking about AI or androids or holograms, there's like almost like a trope of this like sort of create your own woman situation and like sci-fi, or not necessarily create your own woman, but like, having a fake woman exist to sort of please some guy. But obviously the purpose here wasn't to like explore misogyny as a concept or theme or whatever. So it was just kind of weird because it was. Oh, like, what are you doing here? And she's like, oh, I'm waiting for you. And so for that, it's kind of like eye roll. I'm like, okay, whatever. Although she's not lying because technically she was created for him, but it's a interesting example of how sort of the male gaze works in like the media, except it's like a hologram. The camera acts as a sort of placeholder for a man's gaze in movies. So it's like women are sexualized on screen, and it's because they exist for the man that's on screen, but also the camera, which is like also a man, and then also the men in the audience. So like the three layers of man. So in this scene specifically, obviously the man in the scene would be Riker. And then man as the camera, an example of that would be like, there's a sort of pedestal shot as she's sitting, and so it goes up her body, and then you see her smiling at him. And also within the narrative, she was created for him. Like, he picked out a brunette and picked out a part of her personality. So it's just an example of sexism in science fiction. And sometimes like that can be used to like explore misogyny, which is why I mentioned that before. But in this case, it's just
misogyny.
Riker. It's just Riker being weird, or like the writers being weird. And then also another part of it is like when Picard comes in, he's also really enthralled by her, and they both talk about her in front of her as if she's not there, because she'll be talking to them, and then they'll be like, wow, she's almost like the real thing. And I found that to be really odd as well, like almost just as weird as the scene before, because I don't know, it's like they're calling attention to the fact she's not a real person, but also talking about how great of a woman she is. So it's like a weird
yeah, I like
situation.
It feels like to me, like on one side they're talking about her like she's a computer program,
Yeah,
legit, but the effect that it has in the episode is that they're completely objectifying her as a woman, and it's really hard to separate those two things.
Exactly. And like that's like not just in this episode of Star Trek, but that's the thing that happens a lot in science fiction. Like and the first example I can think of is like in Ex Machina, the robot Ava. They talk about her like she's a robot because she is, but then they also talk about her like as a woman. Although in that movie, I think it's actually on purpose, but I'm just providing this example to show that it's a sci-fi trope. It's not just this episode.
If I had any sort of criticism of this episode, it's those initial scenes with Riker and Minuet. They're like really tough to get through, but there's a lot of that in the first season, and at a certain point, I just kind of get numb to it. I'm like, okay, this is just like first season Riker doing his thing. And there's this one, I remember really clearly, there's this one shot of Minuet, and like she has her jewelry and it's literally sparkling, right? Like there's like twinkles coming off of everything off of her, and I'm like, that's a lot. But thankfully, I felt like that stuff was pretty compressed, right? Like there's a couple of scenes that you just kind of have to get through this, and then it just kind of picks up again. And I understand why they're putting it in there, because they have to establish that Riker's enthralled with this simulation. But it's like a really 80s kind of Gene Roddenberry sort of way of doing it. So it's, I don't know what to tell you. Like it's just, it's like one of those moments where you're just like,
But it's a double because it's like Riker, but also like the writer. Oh, Star Trek.
But I think that's just the 80s. I mean, they basically did this, a la Weird Science type kind of thing with making the Dream Girl, from a computer program, and it's just filled with misogynistic tropes. But that's 80s. That's the 80s for you. Was there anything in the 80s where there wasn't this sort of thing happening? I'm just watching Bloodsport right now with Jean-Claude Van Damme. That's filled. Any female character in that is being hit on and objectified. And it's ridiculous. But that's just how it is. I feel like, once we got like Ellen Ripley in the Alien franchise, that's when, we started to maybe, change up some of these tropes. But the 80s is just filled with objectifying women and just trying to get in their pants. And it's constant. Everything, Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, everything is about trying to get with girls. But that's just the 80s for you. And I mean, I kind of, we just kind of hand wave it away now, because I mean, these things have been made in this era. We still enjoy them, but we realize that some of the aspects of it are severely dated and would not fly on today's big screen or small screens. But I to get back to just this episode, I mean, the holodeck stuff for me, I don't think I was ever really a fan of this part, because 12-year-old me doesn't give a shit about romance, and now 40-year-old me just sees this as completely kind of creepy, kind of weird. Like, not even the misogyny of it either. It's like just how quickly he's ready to just forget about his duties, forget about everything he's got going on in his life, just to score with this holographic image. And it's just kind of a weird thing to be distracted by. I feel like the Bynars could have probably come up with a much better plan. It seems like this plan just had too many things that could go wrong. It's like, well, Riker, so, oh, geez, I gotta go. He turns it off and leaves. It's like, oh shit, our plan's blown to hell now. It's like they put a lot of faith into Riker's creepiness and his lady man persona to keep him in there. Because to just take a couple crew members and maybe knock them out with a hypo spray would have probably been a more efficient way to have a couple people on board just to wake up and help you
This ship is going to be destroyed.
I mean, I get it, but I also think that wouldn't have been as fun, right? Because at some point it stops becoming misogynistic, and it becomes about her, trying to keep them in the holodeck, which I really like. I really like when they're like, wait, something's wrong.
Well, it was even weirder. Like, it was weird enough as it was, but then it was weirder that Picard just walks in, doesn't even knock or chime in or anything. Riker could have been in there going at it with her, and he just kind of walks in and interrupts them, and then basically cock blocks them and hangs out there. Oh, let's sit there and have a drink and a chat.
I don't think they're. I don't.
This is my favorite part of the episode, right there.
But I don't think they're. I actually don't think that they're allowed to have, sex with.
Yeah, there's a lot of people not allowed to do a lot of things and still do them.
No, I know, but the whole thing about the first season is that the holodeck is new, right? Like,
yeah, and people are going to use it for sex. Anything that new comes out, people find a way to use for sex.
Yeah, sure, but it's new. They don't really know how to interact with these people. They're always surprised at how realistic they are, and plus, it's a military ship. Right, so there's protocols around all that stuff. So I really think that for Riker, this was a brand new thing, right?
Well, yeah, the internet was a brand new thing, but they pretty much used it for pornography like right away in the 90s.
But more to the point, they specifically address this in the episode, because when Riker starts to really get into Minuet, he goes, "How real can you be? I mean, how far
can this relationship go?"
How far can this relationship go? I mean, how real are you?
As real as you need me to be.
It's like, were you programmed with parts? That's basically what he's saying.
And she says, "I can be as real as you need me to be."
I know. It's one of those creepy things like Tasha Yar with Data. Like, how fully functional are you?
And then they start making out. They start kissing, and it's only Picard showing up at that moment that permits.
I know, but all I'm saying is that it wasn't weird to me that Picard would just walk in, because he's not going to assume that Riker's having a really deep relationship with a simulation, right? Because that's not, because Riker wouldn't have asked that question if he was like, "I've done this 1 billion times before, I know what this OS can give me." You know what I mean?
He literally slept with the space lady there last week, that probably broke regulations when he was sleeping with that leader last week. So
I mean, I think that's a gray area.
Track record of
it's a gray area. I don't know if he broke any regulations there.
I don't understand how he got to the position of commander. Like, I feel like he would have been like...
He slept his way to there.
Man. He's really, really close with Picard.
I just imagine Picard walking in, seeing them kiss, and then like looking down at Riker's spandex crotch, and then going, "Number one, I didn't mean to disturb you." He's like, "Oh no, it's quite all right. Come."
Okay. I mean.
Oh my.
Obviously, everybody's having sex with each other on that ship, right? Like, they're in space, they've been out in space for a very long time. Everybody has a bedroom,
and Gene Roddenberry, because Gene Roddenberry wrote the episode, or I'm sure that those parts of the episode were Gene Roddenberry writing.
Every to Roddenberry.
But it's like, it's one of those, it's the same as, we don't see anybody going to the bathroom. It's the same thing. We know it's happening. We must be happening, but we just kind of don't talk about it.
Just between commercial breaks. Only between commercial breaks.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I'm with Lola. It would have been much more interesting if Geordi and Data had been the ones on board who were working this out. Riker and Picard are kind of like, it's not very exciting.
Well, and I think one bright spot. I mean, I like the episode, so I'm not saying there's only one bright spot of this episode, but the one bright spot of the holodeck scenes is Minuet. The actor who plays Minuet is Carolyn McCormick, and I think she's awesome. She was a regular on Law & Order. She played the police psychiatrist, Dr. Olivet, and I always loved her performance, and I thought she was great. And it's a nice little we're gonna revisit her character in a twist in a future episode, and that's
Spoilers! I didn't know that.
Well, it'll be a surprise when you see it. You won't see it coming, but it is awesome. Yes.
So how do we feel about there's also, so we talked about all the holodeck stuff. Oh, by the way, was anybody else distracted by the really bad playing and of playing the jazz, where people are just...
I like that the piano player called him out on it. It's like, don't quit your day job, buddy. That was good. Yeah, you could join us, but it's like, man, you're not that good.
I thought he was joking.
You thought what?
Well, yeah, but I don't think John was
joking. He was just haha, friends are mean to each other.
Yeah, I hope I keep thinking that he actually meant it, and I like it better by taking it in that context. That Riker's a terrible trombone player.
Man, what's with all this Riker hate? I feel like I have to defend him, even though I don't like him.
He wasn't as cool before the beard. It's the beard. The beard made him better.
Yeah, the beard did make him better. It's true. So, am I wrong, or is this the first episode that introduces Riker's love of trombone?
No, this is the first mention of his jazz love.
And I think this is the first time that we see Data painting as well.
I think so, yeah.
Oh, yes.
I think my favorite moment of this episode was Data painting, and he was talking about how he's trying to learn creativity. I thought that was really nice. And then Riker comes in and reads, and he's like,
I know, yeah, he makes that a really offensive joke.
Paint? I was like, that was so rude.
Well, of course, think about it. A blind man teaching an android how to paint. That's got to be worth a couple of pages in somebody's book.
That was pretty rude. Because what?
Was rude? I missed that.
No, because Data is painting and Geordi's helping him, and then Riker comes in and ruins the nice moment by being like, oh yeah, scholars are gonna have a field day with this one in the future, and they're like, why? And then Riker's like, a blind man teaching an android how to paint? That's got to be worth a couple pages in someone's book.
Yeah, I know, it was so rude. Such a rude thing to say.
I know, I like that moment. I always think it's super sweet. I think it's a really nice.
No, it's sweet. It is sweet. It's sweet until Riker says that, because then it's just the way he says it would be rude.
It would be nice if
I don't know. I think
it would be nice if we had a closer relationship.
I think he was just kind of razzing them, like friends, right? Because it's not like they were it's not like they didn't get the joke. They got the joke and they were annoyed by it, right? Geordi's like, oh, this guy, and he turns around. So I thought it was a nice moment.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice moment.
Geordi can see, so Geordi can see, but
it would play better if they had a closer friendship, and you realized it was this kind of. I mean, yeah, obviously it was him being in jest and rather than his friend, but they don't have a relationship that would make me think that that's an okay thing to joke about. Like even in people, everyday relationships, you get comfortable with people and you realize what kind of humor they enjoy, and you can get comfortable with that. But he just comes in there, it's like, oh, I'm your superior officer. It's like, haha, there's a handicapped person teaching a machine how to do stuff. And it's this thing, it's like, you just can't do that.
I think you guys are reading too much into this.
If it happened in season 7 and these characters are really close and tight knit and been through a lot together, you would say, oh yeah. But in his early days, it just comes off as kind of offensive and rude.
But
yeah. I got that too.
Why can't characters say things that are slightly not perfect or not super nice?
No, they can
because he's their boss.
Well, but that's my point. But it's okay. I think from a character perspective, I like it for two reasons. One, because I think it's a really good character moment. But also it makes a relationship between, all three of those characters feel much more real, right? Because it is something that he said that Geordi was like, I don't like that. But that makes them feel like real people, right? And I think this show, TNG, does that really well. And same with the original series, right? Where people don't always say the exact right, perfect thing, right? But all the new Trek stuff is like that. All the new Trek stuff is like, I'm going to say the exact right, perfect thing for this exact moment. I
want to stop you right there.
What? Oh, am I ranting? I feel like
you're about to get into it. I can feel it.
I hate Discovery.
I never said that. I said new track.
That's where we were going.
Okay, so I agree with Namir. I think the scene is really sweet, and I think what Riker is saying in the scene is he's actually saying you guys are really important, and you guys are significant, and I like you guys. That's what he's saying. He's making a joke out of it. And that's why I think it's a sweet scene.
Did anybody think it was weird that Data was painting in the conference room with Geordi rather than his quarters, and it was totally just a contrived setup so Riker could walk in and make his stupid joke? Because he wouldn't have just walked into Data's quarters and said, "Oh, hey, I'm just strolling through your quarters. Oh, you're painting." Like, it seemed weird that we've seen Geordi and Data hanging out in his quarters, and now they're in the conference room for some reason painting.
I like that whole sequence. I like that sequence when Riker's basically walking the ship and just like talking to people. So
if I was Riker, I'd be like, "Why are you painting in here?"
And that would have been great, right? That would have been a nice interaction too. But I just mean in the context of the entire scene, like he goes and checks in with Data and Geordi, right? And then he goes and checks in with Crusher and tries to have a conversation with her, but she's so excited that she's just too busy, right? And doesn't want to, like that to me made the whole, the whole start of the episode really, really work, because it felt like an actual thing that would happen in his job and on the ship.
Well, that's what I liked about this episode too, was that some of the character interactions felt more natural. Like that, yeah, I almost forgot about that scene with Dr. Crusher. Like, for once, she just wasn't there spewing medical jargon and worrying about outbreaks or whatever. Like, she seemed like a real person, like a professional. Like, oh my God, I'm so disorganized, and I get to meet this guy, and I got to get there, and she felt like a human character at that point, not just a talking head about medical jargon. So I did like that we got some more.
It's like behind the scenes. It's like we're seeing behind the scenes of in between adventures. And there's that moment where Yar and Worf are going to go play priest.
Oh yeah, that was great. Yeah, that was awesome to have those moments.
For the plot itself, you actually don't need any of that stuff. Like, it's not really relevant, right? Like it really adds to the episode, right? It really kind of creates a great context for all the bad stuff to happen.
So let's talk about the ship stealing scene, because there's the Bynars steal the ship, and then there's the evacuation scene.
Slowest hijacking and evacuation ever.
No, the evacuation scene, they reused shots from where no one has gone before.
They reused shots from Star Trek 3.
I was, because I had to edit where no one has gone before. So the moment I saw that shot of like that guy turn around, I was like, I've seen that face 1,000 times. They can't do this.
Yeah, you're like, hey, is that guy wearing a skirt? Did they bring those back?
Oh yeah, I like they say evacuation, and then everyone's listening, and then they just like casually walk away. It's like, dude, they just said there's gonna be like a warp core breach or something, and they're just like slowly kind of strolling, fast walking.
It's gonna be a warp core breach. They have 4 minutes and 16 seconds. Just to give you an idea of how little time 4 minutes and 16 seconds is yesterday I had to be across town, and I had to leave in 4 minutes so I could make it there on time. So I had 4 minutes to get from the apartment down the elevator to the car, and take a couple things out of the trunk and get in the car and leave. And that whole process took 20 minutes. And I was going fast.
That seems long.
Yeah, but you're like, older, a little bit more out of shape. It's hot right now in LA. You kind of dawdle a little bit. Not always focused.
There was no way that we're gonna get all those people off of the ship in 4 minutes and 16 seconds. And they were
it seemed like people were being ridiculously calm about it.
But
amount of time and what was happening.
But I always thought that there was probably, because I think they imply this, that there's multiple transporter rooms, right? So everybody has like an emergency transporter room. That's the closest to where they are, right? So I would assume, this is my assumption, that they should be able, no matter where they are, they should be able to get to a transporter room in under 5 minutes. Because
I'd be moving faster. There's a warp core failure. That's all. I'm saying.
No, I know, but
like I'd be trampling people.
Totally. But I think they're close enough because
the shot in the transporter room where Wesley and the kids are beaming away, and there's a lineup going out the door, and there's this one guy who was pushing a woman, like, stop pushing.
I saw that too. I'm like, why are they only beaming 5 people down? I'm like, there's 6 transporter pad spots. I'm like, maybe there's something wrong with it. Maybe
also, they can transport people who aren't on pads. So it's like, I don't understand why they didn't tell everyone to just stay still and transport everyone.
Well, I think that's a lot of energy. I think that takes a lot of power.
The energy if they have 3 minutes to go.
So I think the beer's frozen because he was kind of like. I was like, his eyes just kind of like. I'm like, oh, I don't think he's just bored. I think he's like actually frozen in God.
Oh, his internet just died.
Internet just died. Oh dear. Oh, that's Lola.
Just ask him if he's willing to, if he's able to come back, and otherwise we'll do his rating next week, basically. I think the issue that kind of deflates the whole evacuation and stealing Enterprise scene is that it's kind of, they borrow a lot of shots from Star Trek 3. And so the Star Trek 3 Enterprise stealing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll say about that too. Like how they took all the shots from Star Trek 3, but they took none of the excitement, because I mean, in Star Trek 3 we had the Excelsior coming after them, and you know there was a chase and some tension, and were they going to be able to make it? Where here, it seems odd that they had like no offensive capabilities to like no tractor beams, no weapons. I mean, he did mention that there was the ships that were docked there were not in any position to give chase to the Enterprise. But you think that Starbase must have some sort of defensive capabilities, tractor beam, like why, once they realized what was happening, that it wasn't a warp core breach and they were being, they warped away, why would they not give chase in a shuttle or anything, because I mean, they just can't let the flagship of the Federation be hijacked. So it seemed odd that they're basically just left there to stand around that room and just talk about, we really need to find a way to get to them, and that the conversation just went nowhere.
Yeah. And so, I mean, so I think one bright spot for me that's related to the docking of the Starbase is that it's I think the first and maybe the only time where you see them physically docking with a Starbase, and you see the hallway going. You see the hallway going to like the sort of the docking port or the door that that you see in the on the side of the Enterprise, and it's very reminiscent of in the Star Trek: The Motion Picture, where you see the little shuttle pod like dock onto the little portal of the Enterprise, and you kind of see the same little portal, and you see people walking in. There's a little hallway, the little tunnel, and I like that a lot.
Yes, there's some great visuals. Yeah.
Too bad that doesn't come back, and I just don't understand why they just basically use the Star Trek 3 shots exactly, and they just superimpose the Enterprise D over the original Enterprise. And I thought, even if they had just flipped the shots, because I don't think there's any writing on the space dock on any of those shots, so you could have inverted all those shots. And there was even a shot where they're in the office, the little like office, and then you see the Enterprise in the background, and it's like that was a completely new set. It had nothing to do with Star Trek 3, and yet it mirrored almost exactly a shot of Star Trek 3 where there's like a lounge and the Enterprise comes and docks, and you're just like, you could have just changed it enough that you would have been, that it wouldn't have been so obvious that it was just reusing the same shots.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as offensive a reuse as the bird of prey blowing up in Generation Star Trek 6, but yeah, it was still cool enough. And I think I saw this before I saw Star Trek 3, so it really wowed me. You know, it's like, oh man, it's such great, miniature work, and and everything was so beautiful. Like the model of the Starbase was so beautiful, and the Enterprise. But then you see Star Trek 3, and it's like, oh, I see where it's all come from now. Yeah,
it's amazing. It looks like ILM did this.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say that, like, when I first saw, I guess it's been a really long time since I've seen Star Trek 3, because I wrote about how, like, at the start of the episode, I really love that shot of the space station, like the matte painting is really beautiful. It kind of makes me wish like that style is still kind of used today for special effects, and also the music was really nice throughout the whole episode.
I love
probably for me, it's probably the first episode where I really noticed the music. I noticed it a lot at the end, and then on my rewatch, I noticed it throughout. And for me, it's definitely a highlight of the episode. And I actually really like that shot from, like, within the. It's like from inside the Enterprise when you see like the space station moving outside. I thought it made like the environment feel really authentic. So, despite the reuse of shots, I thought it was nice. I thought it was. I can see why they reused it. They're good shots.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's do our rating.
Wait, first, there's one funny moment that I thought we would have a time to say funny moments.
A what?
Funny moments?
Oh yes, go ahead. Funny moments.
Commander Quinteros, to me, I thought he was an evil version of Picard.
Because he had a goatee?
Yeah, well, he had the goatee, but also he's like when we first have that close up of Commander Quinteros, for a second I was like, oh my god, are they doing an evil episode? But then it cuts back to Picard and they're talking. I was like, oh, never mind.
My initial thought when I saw Quinteros was like, oh, it's a low budget Sean Connery. I was like, oh, it's Indiana Jones' father.
But really, it's what's his name? Ben Childress from the
oh, that's right. Mud's Women, yeah.
Mud's Women.
Minor. Right.
He and it's amazing. Like it's 30 years later, and he looks almost exactly the same. Aside from his hair being white, he doesn't look like 25 years older.
I have a little work to finish up. Then I'm going to my cabin. I'm going to put my feet up. I'm going to turn on my personal relaxation light. And I'm going to lose myself in the pages of some old novel.
I also thought the line, the way Picard said personal relaxation light, for some reason I thought that was funny.
And I kind of wonder what that was. Like, I'm trying to think of what
This is my personal relaxation light right here.
And you just shine it right in your face, and you're like, oh.
I'm going to turn on my personal relaxation lights and get lost in a good book.
I was thinking, my God, these characters had boring hobbies. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go play some jazz. Oh, I'm going to go read a book. I'm like, God. I was like, at least the Yara and Worf had the Parisi Squares tournament. I'm like, oh, finally, somebody's got an exciting hobby. It's not gardening or reading a book or studying a technical journal or painting. Yeah, like, my God, these people have boring hobbies.
Playing in quartets. When I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I thought these guys were like the coolest people I'd ever met, and I just wanted to be one of them.
For other nice moments, I really like the moment where Minuet transitioned from being like really nice and polite to kind of being really demanding when she's like please don't go when Picard tries to leave. I thought it was a really good acting moment, and I thought she really changed the tone of the scene really efficiently.
Or no, it just would have been cool if they had made it more of a like a horror movie type thing where someone's demeanor just changes and the music changes and she like, because I'm trying to think of another example where it's kind of like in Voyager's Caretaker, the very first episode there, where all those nice farm people on the Caretaker array suddenly turn bad with their pitchforks and come after them. It's like, oh, you want to rush the procedure, and I'm like, it's like ah. but she was just like kind of really like, she wasn't that aggressive and or suspenseful in her behavior. Where it's like, oh my god, why is she turned evil?
I thought her switch in demeanor made her more human. I don't think she was supposed to be evil. I think she was genuinely just kind of desperate.
But yeah. I liked also that once they realized what she was doing and they got up, she kind of turned into like a robot. She went and she kind of froze. Do you notice that?
Yeah, the program ended.
It's like the program didn't know what to do. It was like a short circuited but then they start questioning her and then she starts.
I'm not programmed to give you that information.
Yeah, it is awesome. Okay, let's give our ratings for this episode.
I want to give this episode 6 out of 10. I really loved the story. I love the way the plot unfolded, and I really love the music. For me, the pacing and just everything, how everything unfolds in this episode is really great for me. I really liked it, but I just was not a big fan of the characters. I think everyone knows now I'm not a big fan of Riker. I just wasn't really invested in Riker and Picard's arc in this episode. So because of that, I lost a bit of, I guess, just personal investment. So yeah, 6 out of 10. How about you, Alan? What did you think, friend?
Well, friend, I would give this one probably about a 7 out of 10. It's definitely one of the better first season offerings. It had a good Star Trek message in the end. I liked the Bynars. I thought they were a great creation. They felt truly alien. They're like a good version of the Borg, I guess, where they become interdependent on computers, but in a more benign way. And I like the resolution where they basically had a binary choice to make. Do we ask for help? Do we not ask for help? And they might say no, but we really need them. So in order to to avoid any disruption to their needs and goals, they just hijacked the Enterprise, and it was totally like a completely harmless choice in their mind. But of course, Starfleet sees that in another way, so it created that conflict, and I thought that was interesting way of going about it, just rather than have something be black and white. Well, I guess it was black and white to the Bynars, but yeah, that was just it was refreshing to see that there wasn't really a villain in this one. We could see from both sides, and that's always nice in the Star Trek episode. So yeah, but again, sorry I'm rambling here, but I just know there's so much good stuff coming down the line, so I can't really give this one any more than a 7 because even though it's one of the better ones of season one is still, not as good as what's to come. So that's where I'm at.
Namir, what do you think?
Well, I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10 because I thought that
everything was wonderful.
I really thought it was perfect, right? I thought the plot really unfolded perfectly. I thought the premise was perfect, and I don't think there's anything wrong with Riker's behavior at all. So, yeah.
We don't even need me to record anything. That was perfect.
I think actually, honestly, if any of us could have a career in doing reviews, it's probably Namir.
Sure. So I will also give it a 7 out of 10. As I said before, it's an episode I really like. I haven't rewatched it a ton of times. It's not my favorite first season episode, but it's one that I do enjoy. There is the element of stealing the Enterprise that I like, and and all these details about the characters and sort of their personal lives and how they like spending their downtime, especially Riker. And I love Minuet and sort of this idea of like an super sophisticated AI that can basically trick a human into falling in love. So in the parts that I don't like about the episode are really the contrivances to make everything kind of work. I don't find it believable, and therefore it's harder for me to really enjoy the episode because it just kind of feels kind of made up. But so it gets a 7 out of 10. So what's next week, Alan? Do you know what the next episode? Oh, it's
I actually do not know.
No, it's the one with the guy gets old.
Oh, too short a season.
So we'll be back next week with Too Short a Season. Back with the Nerdiest Prime crew. And until then,
live long and prosper.
Just where it's up.